Hi everyone, my name is Isabel Jaffe and I am a freshman at Concord Carlisle High School this year and I am your reader for today. So, for those of you who don't know, Dia de los Muertos or Day of the Dead is coming up. It is actually going to be celebrated October 31st through November 2nd this year, so that's really exciting. And I have two books that we're going to read together to help us learn all about what that means and what it means to celebrate Dia de los Muertos. For those of you who don't know, this is the Crossroads YouTube channel. Crossroads is a subsection of the Intersections Club at Concord Carlisle High School, and our main message is just to help unite people and help everyone realize that although we may be very different, there are things that we all have in common and that we all share and should celebrate. So today we're going to be reading The Day of the Dead, El Dia de los Muertos, which is a bilingual book, and it's by Bob Barner, translated by Teresa Marr. And also we're going to be reading Funny Bones by Duncan, Tonatiuh. So let's get into it. This book is kind of special because I'm going to show you guys. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, and you can see inside the book that the way it's written is that it has both English and right after it translates to Spanish. So I'm going to read it in both, and if you guys have any kind of prior Spanish knowledge, you can listen for any words that you might know, or try to follow along. And if you have no Spanish knowledge, you can guys just get used to listening to the language and just try to pick up anything that you might think sounds familiar. We celebrate our ancestors on the Day of the Dead. El Día de los Muertos, honoramos a los antepasados with offerings of flowers, sugar skulls, and bread, con ofrendas de flores, calaveras de azúcar y pan horneado. We make tacos, empanadas, mole, and treats. Hacemos tacos, empanadas, mole y platos deliciosos. We smell incense that burns smoky and sweet. Quemamos incenso con ese olor maravilloso. Before we go out, everything must be done. Hay que tener todo listo antes de la partida. Pack up our bundles before the setting sun y empacar bien las cosas mientras hay luz del día. Under twinkling stars and the moon glowing bright, bajo estrellas que brillan y una luna muy clara. Here you have the moon with some stars. Light the candles that flicker with soft yellow light. Encendemos las velas amarillas y blancas. Mark a path for the spirits with petals of flowers. El camino a los espíritus indicamos con pétalas de flores que cortamos. We've got skeleton and the petals right here. These are marigolds. We dance, we sing, bailamos y cantamos, and remember the loved ones for hours. Y durante varias horas a nuestros seres queridos recordamos. Celebrate our ancestors on the Day of the Dead. Honoramos a los antepasados en el Día de los Muertos. So, Dia de los Muertos is all about remembering those who came before you. We smelt the sweet flowers as we lie down for bed. Y cuando a dormir nos retiramos, el dulce olor de las flores aspiramos. See? You've got the kids just like you guys going to bed. Alright, now we have a bit of text. So I'm not going to show you the pictures for a little bit, but it's all about Dia de los Muertos. Millions of people from Mexico and parts of Central and South America observe one of Latin America's most popular holidays called El Día de los Muertos in Spanish and the Day of the Dead in English. It is a special time for remembering loved ones who are no longer living and is celebrated every year from October 31st until November 2nd. People prepare for the holiday by baking or buying special foods. Pan de Muertos, or bread of the dead, is a sweet bread baked only for this special holiday. It has a tiny skeleton doll baked inside. The person lucky enough to get this little skeleton in his or her piece of bread can make a wish that will come true. Sugar skulls, or calaveras de azúcar, come decorated in bright colors. They can be eaten at the end of the celebration. People also gather their favorite foods of their deceased loved ones. Tamales are a popular treat at the celebrations. They are cornmeal cakes filled with meat wrapped in corn husk and steamed before eating. Altars for the departed, decorated with marigolds and candles, are displayed in homes and schools. Sweet-smelling incense is burned to attract the spirits of the departed. On the night of November 2nd, families go to the cemetery. They spread the petals of marigold flowers, burn incense, and light candles to welcome the spirits to the celebration. Then they dance, sing, have a picnic, and share memories of their loved ones. Families leave the flowers on the graves at the end of the celebration as they begin their journey home. The popular Mexican artist Jose Guadalupe Posada, who lived from 1852 to 1913, inspired some of the skeleton characters in this book. His engravings of skeletons and the skeleton lady with a large flowered hat, La Catrina, which you see guys right here. La Catrina, have become symbols of the Day of the Dead holiday. The end. Okay, so I have a question for you guys. And that would be, have you guys ever heard of Dia de los Muertos? Maybe some of you may have heard of it in Spanish class, maybe at school, maybe you know someone who celebrates it. What have you guys heard about Dia de los Muertos? That was our first book. It actually just ended talking about someone named Jose Guadalupe Posada, which is actually perfect because our next book is all about him. And it is called Funny Bones. Posada and His Day of the Dead, Calaveras, by Duncan Tonatiuh. Skeletons riding bicycles, skeletons wearing fancy hats, skeletons dancing and strumming on guitars. We call these festy, bony figures calaveras. In Spanish, the word calavera or calavera means skull. A lot of things that are associated with skulls and with el Día de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, are called calaveras. For example, there are calavera drawings, candy calaveras, calavera poems, and calavera toys. The skeleton figures are not scary. In fact, they always look like they're having fun. See, this one's riding a bike. They are the creation of Jose Guadalupe Posada, and this is his story. In 1852, in a small house in the Mexican city of Aguascalientes, Jose Guadalupe Posada was born. Lupe, as everyone called him, was the son of a baker and the sixth of 8 children. See, there's his big family. Lupe's older brother, Cirilo, became a teacher. He taught Lupe how to read and write. Lupe loved to copy the drawings he saw in prints and in books at school. Cirilo noticed how well Lupe drew and helped him enroll at the local academy. We have paintings that Lupe would do right here. When Lupe was 18 years old, he began to work at Don Trinidad Pedrosa's print shop. There, he discovered his lifelong passion for printing. He learned lithography. Lupe also learned engraving. He helped Don Trinidad print documents, diplomas, flyers, labels for matchbooks, receipts, and invitations for weddings and birthdays. After work, Lupe, Don Trinidad, and other artists would gather at the shop. They were unhappy with the job that the people in the government were doing. Don Trinidad invited Lupe to make some drawings for a small newspaper he was involved with. It was called El Jicote, the Bumblebee. Lupe drew cartoons for the paper. This was long before he drew the Calaveras. In one of the drawings, Lupe drew some local politicians climbing a pole and stepping over one another. By making the men look silly, he showed their greed and bad traits. Readers of El Jicote agreed with Lupe's point of view and laughed when they saw his cartoons. That year, some of the politicians Lupe and Don Trinidad were against lost their elections, but some remained in power, and they were angry at them. To avoid trouble, Lupe and Don Trinidad decided to move to the nearby city of León. Lupe lived in León for many years. He opened his own print shop, and everyone began to call him Don Lupe, which is a sign of respect. He married Maria de Jesus Vela, and eventually they had a son. They named him Juan Sabino. In addition to his printing work, Don Lupe began to create illustrations for books and pamphlets. He also taught lithography at a local school. He became successful and well known in the region. But in 1888, a terrible flood destroyed a part of the city, including Don Lupe's shop. See? Doesn't look good. Don Lupe, his wife, and their son moved to Mexico City, the capital of the country. Don Lupe worked as an illustrator and designer in several print shops. Eventually, he was able to open his own print shop near Zócalo, the city's main square. One of the men Don Lupe worked with was Antonio Vanegas. He published intriguing stories on large sheets of bright paper called broadsides. The tales were about a wide range of topics, including scary creatures, fires, miracles, violent crimes, heroes, bandits, cockfights, and bullfighters. Don Lupe illustrated many of these tales. Paperboys sold the inexpensive broadsides on the street for a few cents, and people, even people who couldn't read, bought them. They were fascinated by Don Lupe's drawings. See, here we have the paperboys selling one of the drawings. Don Lupe and Antonio worked together for more than 20 years. They were always busy, especially every November 1st and 2nd, during Día de los Muertos celebrations. On those days, the city was full of vendors who sold pan de muerto, bread, marigold flowers, sugar skulls, and papel picado, or paper cutouts. People bought these and other items to decorate the ofrendas, or offerings that they made for loved ones who had died. For the holiday, Don Antonio and other editors published literary calaveras. They were short rhyming poems that featured a skeleton and made jokes about him or her. People found the poems very funny and bought them on the street from paperboys. A man named Manuel Manilla illustrated many of the poems for Don Antonio. Don Lupe also began to illustrate them, and soon he became a master at it. Don Lupe had a lot of work. He was busy all the time. He began using a printing technique that was quicker than lithography or engraving. It was called etching. Don Lupe made thousands of drawings over the years. Only 100 or so are calaveras, but they are now his most famous images. Whether he made an etching, a lithograph, or an engraving, he had to draw the image in reverse, the opposite of the way he wanted the finished image to appear. Otherwise, when the image was transferred by ink to paper, it would be backwards. The inspiration behind some of Don Lupe's calaveras is clear, but for others, it is not. We can try to interpret what they mean. During el Día de los Muertos, Don Lupe surely watched people going to the cemetery. They weeded and repainted the gravestone of their loved ones. They bought food and told stories about them. Sometimes they hired musicians to play their loved ones' favorite songs. One day, Don Lupe drew a skeleton wearing a flamboyant hat, La Catrina. The drawing was printed alongside a Calavera poem about the type of woman who puts on makeup and fancy clothes and acts as if she's better than everyone else. Can you imagine the woman who inspired that drawing? Perhaps she wore a pretentious outfit and strolled through the park on a Sunday afternoon. She thought highly of herself, but acted mean and ignored others when they needed help. Don Lupe saw his country, and especially Mexico City, change dramatically during his lifetime. When he was a boy, people walked or rode horses or in carriages. Now he had people riding on bicycles. He saw streetcars travel on tracks and through the city. Everyone seemed to be going faster and faster. That is a streetcar, for those of you who don't know. In 1910, when Don Lupe was 58 years old, a terrible conflict began. Today, it is referred to as the Mexican Revolution. Thousands of farmers and workers throughout Mexico were angry because they worked very hard but could barely earn enough money for their families to live on. The laborers grabbed rifles, machetes, sticks, and any weapons they could find to fight the government and the wealthy landlords it protected. But the rebellious groups that formed in different parts of the country did not work together. They began to fight not only the government, but one another as well. And things spun out of control. Thousands of people lost their lives. Don Lupe drew some of the leaders who were involved in La Revolucion, like Emilio Zapata and Francisco Madero. His calaveras were a way to criticize those men and express his own views. He would praise them if he agreed with their decisions and actions, but he would ridicule them if he disagreed with them, just as he had poked fun at the politicians in Aguascalientes when he was a young man. Don Lupe drew calaveras of his famous men, but he also drew calaveras of the people around him, like the men who swept the streets and the people who worked at print shops. He even drew a calavera of his friend Don Antonio. Don Lupe died on January 20th, 1913. Many people were familiar with his drawings and his calaveras, but very few people knew the artist who was behind them. It was years after his death that historians and artists such as Jean Charlotte and Diego Rivera began to wonder who had drawn these wonderful images. Today, Jose Guadalupe Posada is not called Don Lupe anymore. He is simply called Posada, which is the way he signed his work. His art is celebrated in Mexico, in the United States, and around the world. Some people even dress like Catrinas and parade on the streets during el Día de los Muertos. And on that special day, there is always somewhere an altar with an ofrenda to remember the great Don Lupe Posada. What would Posada's calaveras look like nowadays? And that is my question to you guys. What do you guys think they would look like nowadays? We've got one playing a guitar. This one looks like it's dancing. That is the end of that story. So those are our two stories, guys, for today. And I would be sure to check out the other videos that we have. There will be a lot more coming soon. If you guys check out the bio below, you guys can find much more information about Dia de los Muertos. And I hope that you guys check those out because it's really, really interesting to learn about. And I am so happy that you guys stayed to watch these books and read along with me. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you next time.